Welcome to Sports Talk with Steve Jones, the daily talk show with the voice of Penn State football and men's basketball. You never know what special guest may stop on by any given day. Now here's the man of the hour, Mr. Steve Jones.
All right, great to have you with us. Before we get to the Steelers trades, we have to give our tip of the cap to the Pirates, because the Pirates went out this weekend, and look, they're playing much better baseball since Don Kelly became the manager.
Yes.
Let's just give credit where credit is due. They took the Mets apart 30-4 in sweeping the weekend. Naturally, the stories are not about the Pirates belting the Mets 30-4. All the stories are about what's wrong with the Mets. Maybe the Pirates are playing well. This is one of the biggest problems I have. I don't understand in my lifetime why it has become this way. If this were the 1930s, 40s, and 50s, I could understand the massive concentration on New York, and now, of course, at this point, branching out to Los Angeles. I can understand that because those are the media centers, the hubs. But now we have media all over the place and coverage of everything all over the place where, let's just say the Colorado Rockies were great. Well, we have a whole bunch of stories about them.
Yeah.
Right? How come we don't find out about the Arizona Diamondbacks until they beat the Phillies in the World Series? We're still a New York, Los Angeles-centric media hub. Lakers stories. Lakers. Well, guess what? They lost in the first round, right?
Yeah, they lost in 5.
Yeah. We covered months and months of that for a team that lost in the first round? Really? We could have done the same thing with Orlando. What's the difference between Orlando and the Lakers? Okay, nothing. So, the Mets, New York, Soto, Alonso, right, Lindor, they'll be playing, by the way, at Williamsport this year. They're the Williamsport game with Seattle. Okay, talked to Tim Kirchin about Cal Raleigh the other day. I said he's probably the best player in the field. All right, and so the stories are all about what's wrong with New York. How about what's right with Pittsburgh? What's right with Pittsburgh? First of all, the starting pitching for the Pirates has been, I'd say for the most part, I'd say 80% of the time. How about 80% of the time? I think the starting pitching for the Pirates has been really good.
It's pretty good.
Right? Their bullpen, it's the middle part. Every once in a while, they kind of follow up with the closing. And the big issue with them is they haven't been able to produce a lot of offense. Well, in a weekend, we averaged 10 runs a game.
Yeah.
You produced enough offense. Right? It was very, very impressive. And they took them apart. The sad note, of course, was the loss of Dave Parker. 74 years old, awfully young, in my opinion. Considering I'm getting closer to 74, I would say that. Not in my 70s yet. All right? And two-time World Series champion with the Pirates in 79, the Reds in 90. And Gold Gloves, batting titles, everything.
The Cobra was his nickname.
Great player. And was a special player, especially with Pittsburgh. He did most of his great work with the Pirates. And it was sad because, he was put into the Hall of Fame.
And he's going to be inducted in a month.
Yeah, in a month. You're like, oh. In a lot of ways, it kind of feels like, except different time frame, but like Franco was 3 days away from the big honor at the Raiders-Steelers game on that Sunday night when he passed away on that Wednesday morning. It's like, would have been the 50th of the Immaculate Reception. Now here's Dave Parker about a month away from going into the Hall of Fame. It's like, that's sad. Very, very sad. But that's the big story is, you win 3 games 30-4. Nobody's giving the Pirates any credit. They should get all the credit. They're the ones that went out and scored the runs. They're the ones that went out and shut down the Mets. They're the ones that fielded well. But all the stories in a New York-centric world happen to be about the Mets. Steelers have made 2 trades.
They made 2 trades that turned into 1 trade. The Steelers are officially, as of 3 minutes ago, it's been confirmed, 11:06 a.m. here in Central PA. The The Steelers get Jalen Ramsey, Jonnu Smith. The Dolphins get Minkah Fitzpatrick and a late-round pick. My presumption is a 5th or 6th, if that's the case.
Right. Jonnu Smith, they've been going after anyway. They've been trying to bolster their tight end spot. To go with Pat Freiermuth, they have targeted Jonnu Smith as the guy they really wanted to acquire, so they were trying to work out a deal to get him. He will help them, especially in the blocking area. He will really help them.
And he is on a contract this year and signed an extension for next year for $12 million as well. He signed an extension on top of what he already has.
With all due respect, I would much rather have Minkah Fitzpatrick than Jalen Ramsey. As you know, I am not a fan of Jalen Ramsey at all. I think when he first came out, playing with Jacksonville, I thought he was a terrific player. I thought as he got recognition and accolades, his performance fell off. As I pointed out to people many times, in a pass-happy league, if he's such a great corner, which everybody talks about, why does he only have 15 interceptions in his career? Jack Ham, when they weren't throwing the ball, had 32 at linebacker. Right? He is a good player. He is not a great player. There are people that want to put him into the Hall of Fame. He's in the Hall of Good. And that's what he is. I'm sorry, especially at the States. That is what he is.
I agree.
So did they bolster themselves at corner? Sure.
Their defense now consists of, before we get to the defense actually, and for everyone saying interceptions aren't everything, yes, they aren't. Darrelle Revis didn't have a lot of picks because they never threw his way.
Right.
The difference is they still throw Jalen Ramsey's way. That is the difference here.
I saw.
They don't throw it in him every single play because they don't want to.
I saw the Bengals in the Super Bowl attacked him left and right with Joe Burrow. All right, left and right they went after Jalen Ramsey.
And now the Steelers' defense after the draft and free agency and trades consists of, on the projection would be Derek Harmon, Keanu Benton, and Cam Hayward on the defensive front as a down 3. T.J. Watt, Patrick Queen, Peyton Wilson, and Alex Highsmith as the linebackers/edges. You've got at corner Joey Porter Jr., Darius Slay, and Jalen Ramsey. Yeah. I'm guessing Jalen Ramsey goes in for Slay, and then it's Jalen and Joey Porter, would be my guess.
My guess is, okay, they'll keep Porter outside. My guess is one of them is going to play the slot corner, and that may be Jalen Ramsey.
Yes.
Or it could be Slay. I mean, whatever. But I'm just saying one of them will be the slot corner. They'll go with 5.
And then on the back end, you have Deshaun Elliott, Juan Thornhill, and Beanie Bishop Jr. as well. So that's kind of your projected 11 to 13 players on the Steelers defense.
And
of
look,
course, Beanie Bishop
Beanie Bishop plays hard. Beanie Bishop is, to me, invaluable on special teams. And when he's played out there, he's actually, I liked him in Minnesota. Of course, he played at West Virginia as well. He was good there. So,
and you have players also on defense like Jack Sawyer, Nick Holcomb, Corey Trice, a few others all throughout here. But that's kind of the projection. And the Steelers have had a weird offseason. Like, I'm thinking about this now. They've had a weird one of just like some signings of guys, some trades here and there. Of course,
they get Metcalf. You're like, Metcalf. Whoa. They trade Pickens.
They get trade Pickens. Right. They get Rodgers. Like, okay. And then they go out and grab. Of course,
and
now
they lose Harris. Which they didn't even try to keep.
Yeah.
They get Kenneth Gainwell, who's good enough to be in the league, but is really just another guy.
Their rotation is Jalen Warren, Caleb Johnson, Kenneth Gainwell, Trey Sermon at running back. They give Freiermuth some help with Jonnu Smith. They have DK Metcalf. They, of course, have Robert Woods, Scotty Miller, like this weird Calvin Austin III, this weird roster of just a mishmash of things is kind of how I put it. Like, they're not going full on youth everywhere. They're not going full on old everywhere. It's kind of this weird amalgamation. And like, could it be good? Sure. But, we know Cleveland's going to be bad.
Cleveland will be bad.
We know the Bengals are so
Cincinnati's
weird.
Defense will be mediocre.
Because they have 2 defensive ends who aren't a part of the roster right now.
And their offense will be outstanding.
Yes.
I mean, the Steelers would beg to have that kind of offense.
The Ravens will be really good.
And the Ravens will be very, very good. So the Ravens should be the class of the group because they're better on both sides of the ball combined.
Yes.
The Bengals will be better because their offense is so good it'll offset their defense. But they will play a lot of exciting 37-34 games.
They will play, as I like to dub it, the 2010s Saints type of games, where the Saints are going to put up 49 points, but you're going to get scored by 48. Like, it's going to be a shootout every game for them. And that's what happens when you have no defense.
So here's the full trade. Jalen Ramsey, Jonnu Smith, and a 7th-round pick in 2027.
Pick. Okay.
In 2027.
Minka
Fitzpatrick, and a 2027 5th-round pick. So, so these will not be picks in the upcoming draft.
Yes. These are future ones.
Yep.
Well, it is an interesting amalgamation of a trade. I don't know how much it's going to do to help the Steelers out when it gets down to the nitty-gritty of it, as we've kind of talked about. So it's a weird trade. It's two different trades that kind of became one big trade to make it work for everybody.
Right.
So we'll see exactly what happens. We've got time until the season, of course, arrives. The Steelers play, and I believe a month and a half is when their first preseason game is. So there's a little time.
Right, but Jalen Ramsey is playing in that.
Yeah, and the Steelers offensive coordinator.
I'll say this, in week 2, usually Mike Tomlin plays guys. He's old school when it comes to that. In week 2, he probably will play some guys in the preseason.
And when it comes to them, Steelers offensive coordinator Arthur Smith reunites Jonnu Smith. For the third time, they were together in Tennessee. They were together in Atlanta.
And that's a big part of this. He knows the guys.
He knows them. Jonnu will know the system. They'll know how it works.
That's why they target him the entire time, because Arthur Smith wanted him.
Yes. So that is the big Steelers news.
And again, Jonnu Smith is not coming in to be the star at tight end. He is coming in to be the second tight end and the blocker.
Yes.
With Pat Freiermuth being the primary guy. And Pat already is secure with his second contract. He got that a couple months ago.
Yeah. When we move now over, speaking of trades and all this stuff, the NBA is in free agency. Free agency has officially begun as of this morning. Not a lot has happened. Of course, a lot of the draft happened last week.
Except LeBron.
And LeBron is the big one. We'll get to him in a second.
Okay. Just a quick note in the NBA. Ace Baldwin has signed a summer league contract with the Memphis Grizzlies. Zach Hicks with the Boston Celtics. Yes. They'll be on the summer league teams for those two teams.
Which will be awesome. And we'll get to those teams in a second as well, because there's some things there. But for the NBA, draft was last week. These players sign everywhere. Along with that is the slow leaking out of news here and there. Of course, Kevin Durant's Houston Rocket. That's kind of the start of it all. Some trades have happened here or there in the past few days. No big ones. You had, for whatever reason, the Phoenix Suns again going and getting Mark Williams. So they've now traded 2 firsts and 3 seconds for the Charlotte Hornets center rotation. And then other trades happening here and there. Nothing crazy big. The biggest news, we'll get to LeBron in a second. We're waiting on what's going to happen with other players, like a Jonathan Kuminga with the Warriors, who we don't know. There's a bunch of stuff like that out there. The Portland Trailblazers and DeAndre Ayton are finalizing a buyout, so the former number 1 overall pick is now a free agent. Jabari Smith Jr. signed a 5-year, $122 million deal. Okay. James Harden's got 2 years, $81 million.
Good.
There isn't a lot of crazy stuff, which I guess is a good thing. Like Julius Randle got 3 years, $100 million.
You stay with Minnesota.
Nas Reed got 5 years, $125. Like, it's a bunch of those types of moves. The Thunder traded Dylan Jones away, so now they officially have. Oh my God. It's more that they now have space to actually play Thomas Sorbet, their new draft pick.
Right. Sure.
But the big news is LeBron. And LeBron opts into his $51.5 million player option for the season, which means he's with the Lakers for next season. The thing is, as soon as
he opted in for a year.
He has never opted in. He's had 8 contracts. He's opted out of every one of them to sign a new extension. He has never been on just a 1-year deal.
Right.
And in this case, he opts in, and at the same time as opting in, Rich Paul, his agent, put out a whole statement, which included some words that gave people the idea that LeBron might not want to be there in the long term. And at the same time as this happening, I say, so you don't want to be with the Lakers long term, but you opt in to your contract. Right. If you didn't want to be there, why are you opting in? Because if you're going to get traded, they've got to send things for you, $51.5 million worth for you, which means the team you're going to go to is weaker, so you're going to have a worse time of winning. You see my conundrum here.
Well, I think there are 51 million reasons why he opted in.
Yeah, it's fair. He's a billionaire, too, at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Money's money.
And you have to remember,
yeah,
with movies and everything, Los Angeles, Hollywood, whatever has become his world. Mm-hmm. Okay? I mean, he's producing, things like that away from the floor. So that's essentially where his business empire is now. We are now at a point in this country, as we pointed out, that I don't know why we're so New York, LA centric on sports news. The same thing with this. If LeBron wanted to set up in retirement something in Akron, he could. If he wanted to set up something to be part of the ownership group with the new Las Vegas team, once that's announced, right, and say he's a part of it, he can set up shop there. He can do whatever he wants. Right, at that point. At this point, he stays in Los Angeles. Kind of sees how it goes.
And he is now officially on that 1-year deal, which means the end of this contract. He is a free agent. It could also mean this is his final year. There's a lot of...
Well, he's not young.
He's not young, but that's the point, is that he has not been on a 1-year deal, basically, since he left Cleveland the first time.
Essentially, he's been on 1-year deals the entire time.
But he hasn't had just 1 year left.
He's always opted out of the first year.
And then signed a 2-year to get a 1 year plus. Right. He hasn't been on just a pure, this is the last year of his contract.
He has perfectly, and I mean this as a compliment, game the system.
Yes.
Okay?
2 years,
and I mean that as a compliment. That is that. Normally, you hear somebody game the system, it means you're insulting them. This is 180 of that. The system says you can do this. He's done it,
and he's made a lot of money doing it.
Yeah,
it's worked for him.
He's been smart about it. He's been really smart about it.
Speaking of money and possibly not being smart, the news broke yesterday. Federal authorities are investigating Detroit Pistons guard Malik Beasley on allegations of gambling related to NBA games and prop bets. This broke out yesterday. He was set to sign a 3-year, $42 million deal to retain his job with the Pistons, and now every team has been made aware of it, and now it is up in the air. His gambling industry sources, apparently, for people, are pointing to the Bucks' time when he was with them in 2024 as to when this is being looked at. So they're cooperating with federal authorities. The NBA, of course, not the first time the NBA's had this happen. Toronto Raptors forward Jonte Porter was banned from the NBA after an investigation found that he disclose information you cannot do to sports bettors early this year.
Other guys.
Miami guard Terry Rozier is under federal investigation. He has not been charged, nor has he faced any sanctions.
Other guys in other leagues are going to face some of this stuff too. Yes. This is going to happen. It's big news now. It's amazing how it never happens in Great Britain with the Premier League. And they've had sportsbook there, Ladbrokes, for years, decades. They've had it. And let's just say 10 years. Any betting scandals? No.
There's been one or two, but it's been a long time. I can't remember the last time it actually happened in the Premier League.
Long time ago. And that is...
And the thing is, in basketball, because of the way it's played, there to an extent you can control it. You can't really control it with football unless you're a quarterback.
Right. This is, it turns out, ironically, I went down to Virginia, helped my son move into his new home on Saturday. I got back maybe about 11:15 that Saturday night. Just wanted to sit down for a second, turn on the TV, and there was a 30 for 30 on. It was the 30 for 30. I've seen it before on the Boston College point shaving scandal, which happened in 1980.
Yeah.
All right. It was Rick Kuhn from Pittsburgh, and then others were accused, Ernie Cobb, Jim Sweeney. And the irony is, then I'll get to the other part in a moment. The irony is that, do you know how they got Al Capone and got him into prison?
Tax evasion, I believe.
It was tax evasion. It wasn't for attempted murder. They could never pin it on him. Okay? Never could pin it on him. Have you ever seen the movie Goodfellas?
I have not. It's I know, bad of me.
No, it has nothing to do with that. I'm asking only for a reference point here. Robert De Niro in the movie plays the gangster Jimmy Conway. Now, they used a different name. In real life, it's Jimmy Burke. And Henry Hill was played by Ray Liotta. Well, Henry Hill is really Henry Hill. Okay, and I think he at one point spent time over at Lewisburg. But that aside, at the end of the movie, Leota is on the stand, Henry Hill, and they've got him dead to rights. I mean, with the drug running in Pittsburgh and things like that. And shows him pointing to the defendant, Jimmy Conway in the movie. Okay. Well, in real life, okay, people think in the movie it had to do with the drug running. It was Jimmy Burke got 20 years for the Boston College scandal. And it was, and even the people in the FBI were like, we linked them, and like the people involved in it, the Perler brothers from Pittsburgh, even said we don't even remember him being on a phone call. But it was their way to get Jimmy Burke, and Jimmy Burke got 20 years. Okay? So you talk about the ease with which you can do it. I've told this story before, but I'll retell it. And that is about Penn State being involved in a point-shaving game. Okay? As the participant, not as the object of the FBI. Notre Dame had a place kicker, Kevin Pendergast. Kicked the game-winning field goal in the Cotton Bowl against Texas A&M. All right. Oh, he's great. Yeah. He's from out of Simsbury, Connecticut. I think he's done in his career, whatever it is. Right? And this was uncovered by the Chicago Tribune. And there were 3 games where they figured out there was point shaving going on. So the 3 participants that were alleged were Dion Lee, point guard, Dewey Williams, big man, center, right, forward center, and Burke. Was it Burke? No, Purdy. It was Kevin Purdy. All right. So you talk about the ability to fix a game. The point guard obviously is one. Okay? The big man is certainly another one. And then Purdy didn't play except there's 2 minutes to go in the game. You're getting blown out by 25 points. He comes in the game. What's he good at? Threes. He knocks down a couple threes. 25 becomes 19. And, oh, wait a minute. We have a problem. The way the story goes, and Lee was a perfect guy to do this. He could give you 17 one night. He could give you 4 the next. He was always one of those guys.
Hot or cold.
Right? You just didn't know. So it was like, are you surprised he scored 17? No. Are you surprised he scored 4? No. Okay? Dewey Williams wasn't a good defender to begin with. He just wasn't. Right? I remember I wasn't doing the games with Dick at the time. I think it was Frank Gardenia. I looked over and I said, Frank, Dewey Williams, this is before the game. He says, I think Amachi's going to have a big game. Dewey Williams is a dog. That's what I said to him. I meant as a defender. He's just a dog defender. So the game is, okay, so the first game of the group was Wisconsin. And I think Wisconsin was in the neighborhood of a 13.5 point favorite. Wisconsin won by 14, so barely. So the second game of the group was Penn State. Needless to say, they won at a little more convincing margin. They didn't need to sweat it out, because if you go back to the movie, or not back to the BC point shaving scandal, there was the Holy Cross game, and Holy Cross was favored by 3 and only won by 2 because Ernie Cobb hit some shots down the stretch. They fouled it up they lost a lot of money in the Holy Cross BC game. So now they play Penn State after the narrow, okay, hey, we're on the plus side against Wisconsin. Penn State, Kyle, blows them out by 30 points. 30 points. And Penn State was a 17, 18-point favorite. Okay, Penn State went to the NIT Final Four that year. They had a good team, right? They blow them out by 30 points. And I think John Amachi had his career high at 30 in that game. Dewey Williams couldn't guard him. And guess what? Dion Lee had 4. So now after seeing that performance, and I think the numbers were $4,000 each time. Mm-hmm. Lee would then keep whatever, pick a number, a couple thousand, 1,200 for Williams, 800 for Purdy, whatever, something like that, or whatever the distribution was. I think I'm close on the numbers in terms of what's alleged to be the distribution. Now they get Michigan. Michigan is a 23-point favorite. And Lee tells Pendergast, and Pendergast, by the way, was behind. I remember he was sitting behind the bench in the Penn State game because it was pointed out to me. He said, "Hey, check it out, it's the Notre Dame kicker, Kevin Pendergast." I go, "What the hell is he doing here?" Right? Didn't make sense because I knew he was from Connecticut, so it's not like he was from the neighborhood and came over and said, "Let's go see a game." But I was like, "Oh, that's nice."
Sure.
I just kind of like weird that he's here, but that's okay, right? So now they get to this, and Lee tells Pendergast allegedly, "Hey, look, I don't think we can do that. That's too hard to control." So Pendergast comes back into Evanston and meets in the alleyway. Have you been to Evanston? There's a movie theater near there. So there's an alleyway next to the movie theater. And Pendergast meets Lee in the alley and says, "Look, we'll double the money to 8. This is the big score." And Lee goes, "All right, okay." Well, Michigan wins the game by 17.
Under.
Because remember, this was going to be the big score. So they put decent money on the Wisconsin game. They put about the same money on the Penn State game, it's alleged, but then they went for the big one. This is going to be the one and it's the one that sent up all the red flags to the FBI. They didn't cover. He lost his shirts. Pendergast now has gone around the country for years now preaching about gambling and problems and so forth. I know it was part of his sentence, but I mean, but he still does it even after he's done. Lee's always denied it, but they got in trouble for all this. Look, I did the game that night. Did I think twice about what was going on the floor? No. Right? I didn't find out about it till 2 years later when I read it in the Chicago Tribune. I go, really? Right? I knew Northwestern was not good. They were awful that night. But Northwestern playing awful in the 90s was not an unusual occurrence. And that was not a bad Penn State team. It was a good Penn State team. And he just kind of sat there and went, really? So I want to say this was the 94-95 season. And that, so you talk about the ability to, in basketball, as opposed to soccer, for example.
Yeah.
You've got 11 guys out there, and how many have to pay off to make it happen? Let's start with the goalie.
Soccer to pay off the goalie, but also to make sure that the strikers score, and also the goalies don't play terribly, because if they play terribly, the coach is just going to pull them. If you're that bad, you're going to get pulled.
Right.
So there's only so much you can control, and then it's the same thing in football, where it's like, even if you're a quarterback, if you start playing bad enough, at some point you're yanked. There's a fine line in those sports versus basketball. Especially if you're like what Jonte Porter was, where he's in the game, he's in at the end of the game, and he's in the end of the game because it's not a close enough game. He can either bring it back to close by hitting enough threes, or keep it far away by missing more shots. And that's okay because he's on the end of the roster, so you don't think much about it. Right. Beasley is a weird case as well, so that's just a lot. There's a lot going on there.
Here's the story here. I mean, again, the ability to get 5 guys to do this is, I mean, you can do that. They pick 3 guys.
Would you like to know, by the way, what the bet is that set off the red flags for Malik Beasley? Real quick. Would you like to guess what it is? Firstly, what stat, Steve?
Turnovers.
A gambling industry source pointed to a game between the Bucks and the Trailblazers, January 31st, 2024. The odds on Beasley recording fewer than 2.5 rebounds moved significantly at the sportsbooks for the game, shortening from around plus 120 to around minus 250 due to a surge of action on the under. Beasley finished with 6 rebounds, and the bets that were deemed unusual lost.
By the way, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Dion Lee admits involvement in betting scandal that embarrassed the Big Ten's most academically prestigious school. 3 people have pleaded innocent in the case. Lee of Louisville, Kentucky, pleaded guilty to 1 count of to commit sports bribery. He admitted to accepting or agreed to accept cash bribes totaling $12,000. So far, I'm doing all right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
From former Notre Dame kicker Kevin Pendergast to fix 3 games in the winter of '95. Lee admitted to recruiting 2 teammates, Dewey Williams, who pleaded innocent, and Matthew Purdy, who has not been indicted. Lee agreed to cooperate with the FBI and to work with the NCAA to educate students and athletes about the risks of gambling. The maximum sentence charge of 5 years in prison, $250,000 fine, plus any restitution ordered by the court.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, again, your ability to get, as you mentioned, you talk about a game like that, and whether it's an individual stat, you have to wonder when it's an individual stat like that a guy just like misses a rebound.
That's the thing. He can try and go for it. Let's say he just grabs it a little early, swats it away from himself, essentially. It might not look like much. You might be like, oh, he just mistimed it and he just took his eye off of it or whatever else. This is where it can lead to. Going from the NBA to the WNBA.
By the way, Northwestern was 5-22 that season.
Yikes, Steve.
It was, the games were Wisconsin February 15th, Penn State February 22nd, and Michigan March 1st.
Well, speaking of Michigan, Detroit, Michigan is one of the 3 cities getting a new WNBA expansion team.
By the way, the point spread of the Michigan game was 25.5.
Woof.
Okay, and I was right about the 17. Right,
just a bit outside.
Yeah.
WNBA expansion. The WNBA is already expanding to Toronto and Portland in 2026, and now they're going to expand to Cleveland in 2028, Detroit in 2029, and Philadelphia in 2030. The owners are going to be Dan Gilbert, who owns the Cavs, Tom Gores, who owns the Pistons, and then Josh Harris, who owns the Sixers. The Cleveland team is going to play in Rocket Arena, where the Cavs play. They're going to practice in a facility that the Cavs currently use. The Detroit team is going to be in Little Caesars, where the Pistons play, and they're going to have a new facility in Detroit for them. And then in Philadelphia, they'll be in the new arena going into downtown Philly with the Sixers and Flyers, and share their facility with the 76ers over in Camden, New Jersey for practice. So these 3 teams are all joining on in. Apparently, each owner paid $250 million for expansion, which is 5 times as much as Golden State did for the Valkyries a few years ago. And all 3 teams are investing more money through building practice facilities and other amenities. These are the next 3 teams slated to come in, meaning the WNBA will go up to 18 teams over the next 5 years, set to join by 2030. So now we're up to 18, which is, it's big news. Philadelphia is going to get itself a WNBA team. Of course, in the past, Cleveland and Detroit had WNBA teams. Philadelphia was the home for an ABL team, but
I mean, it's good. I mean, it's more jobs, more opportunity, great for women.
Means there's what, 36 more starting team lineup positions, if I'm not mistaken. They have 12 players per team or roster. So then there's 36 more players making it.
I think that's great.
And we've seen a lot of players get drafted and then get released that draft season because there's just no space on rosters.
It puts them into great markets. Philadelphia, Detroit, Cleveland, great markets. But the issue continues to be, if the NBA decides to cut them loose, saying they don't make money. I mean, I know I keep coming back on the show to the money part over and over again, but I'm sorry. That is the bottom line here.
Yeah.
Okay? I mean, so there's been a lot of talk in the NBA about are we going to continue to fund this? And that's, you have a great star right now, which it's a perfect time to do this because of Caitlin Clark. Now, Caitlin Clark has not had a good year. Okay, just so you know,
a lot. She's been in and out of the lineups.
It's the second time she's been out of She's been on the lineup twice, and when she's played only okay. She has, she's she's scoring a lot of points. Hey, guys, okay, how many shots is it taking to get those points? So it's I don't know. The league has been able to get this far because they've had the NBA money behind them. They do have partnerships where they work together. They do have a $2.2 billion media rights deal, with Disney, which is great. So it's worth $76 billion over 11 years. Okay. But again, that NBC is involved. The NBA is involved in that deal. Okay, that's why it's $76 million. Have you ever watched the WNBA game?
Yeah, I've watched some few games here and there. I watched a lot of the one, especially with Maya Moore. I loved because I grew up in Connecticut, as we've discussed. Like UConn was the sports team. So watching Maya Moore, I started watching Breanna Stewart. I haven't had a lot of time to watch sports games the past few years, but I've not been working at them. So whenever I do have time to sit down and watch, I'll watch something. But here and there, Steve.
I've told this story a couple times on the show, but I'll retell it. I was talking about the Major League Baseball contract and how it was going to be the last year for Major League Baseball with ESPN, Sunday Night Baseball. And I said, I think the prime beneficiary is going to be the WNBA. ESPN's all over it. They're covering it left and right and whatever. More stories, more everything. I said, I think they'll be the prime beneficiary of ESPN not carrying Major League Baseball. And it's just because I like to get a read because the young people, I've got, in there, they may not be 18, but I've got most of the students.
18 to 22s.
Okay, I've got 18 to 23s in there. And I said, how many of you watch the WNBA? And again, preconceived notion, I thought maybe a third of the class would put their hands up. None. I was surprised. I thought, I said, have you ever watched the WNBA game? And everybody said no. So they're expanding. Says here, during the mid-2000s, the NBA spent more than $10 million per year to keep the WNBA financially solvent. In 2007, teams were estimated to be losing $2 million a year. In 2018, Adam Silver revealed that the WNBA lost an average of more than $10 million per year, which would amount to at least $280 million in losses since the WNBA's inception in 1997. By the 24 season, the WNBA had seen its revenue grow. They've raised capital, renegotiated their media deal, expansion fees, which we just talked about, increased ticket sales. Still, 40% of the revenue generated by the WNBA goes to teams and players, and the remainder goes to the NBA and outside investors. Overall, the league is expected to have lost, for the 24 season alone, how much?
$50
million. Unlike the NBA, whose financials are more transparent, data on the financial situation of the WNBA is rarely shared with media. And this has become, to me, part of the embarrassment of, look, just be transparent, okay? Let's go back now to Iowa women's basketball. Again, I'm just stating facts here. I am not making a commentary on the sport. It has nothing to do with it. It tells you how hard it is to make money unless you're doing these $76 billion 11-year deals like the NBA has. Okay? Right? The Big Ten contracts with Fox Sports 1, of course, part of Fox, CBS, NBC, Peacock, right? And then you add in Big Ten Network, which is owned by Fox, are with football and men's basketball. Okay? Well, they shouldn't be putting, if I hear one more time, they shouldn't be putting the TV money on the men's basketball line. Excuse me, the contract is with the men's basketball part of the conference. That's who the contract is with to carry the men's games and to carry football games. Everybody else is along for the ride and is the beneficiary of having a Big Ten network to show the softball game, to show the baseball game, to show the soccer game, to show the wrestling match, to show the women's basketball game. Yes, did Iowa make it onto Fox, 3 times last year because of Caitlin Clark? Absolutely. Great draw. Did they sell out every game at Carver Hawkeye? Absolutely. Great story. They sell out arenas everywhere they went last year? Absolutely. And lost $3.6 million.
Yeah.
Right? Because the TV deal is, because when they sat down and negotiated it, they don't sit there in the negotiating room. This is the part that people don't quite grasp when they're talking about their niche sports. Okay? They don't go into the room and say, all right, now how much of this goes to, let's just keep it the women's basketball thing. All right, we're going to negotiate. We want football, men's basketball. How much of this goes to women's basketball? That doesn't come up in the conversation. When ESPN sits down to do their contract with the SEC, it's about football, men's basketball. When they do their contract with the Big 12, it's about football, men's basketball. When Fox goes in to talk to the Big 12, it's football, men's basketball. When it's the ACC, ESPN goes in, it's football, men's basketball. That's what the conversation's about. These other sports don't come up at all. Zero.
Yeah.
That's why it goes on that line, because that's what the contract is for. You're the beneficiary of having a Big Ten network, an ACC network, an SEC network that can show you Livy Dunn, okay, on women's gymnastics on the SEC network. Great. The exposure is worth its weight in gold. But that's how hard it is to make money in this. How can the WNBA lose $50 million? Easily. Okay? But fortunately, they've got the NBA behind them. If the NBA ever pulled out, they wouldn't make it. They would not make it, and that's one of the issues. So now the expansion fees with 3 teams.
$750 million is pretty good.
Good news. How much was it?
So it's $250 million per franchise.
So it's
$750 million.
$750 million.
Over the next 2 years.
Okay, so now that's, you're getting to the neighborhood of $1 billion. Okay, so $750 million spread out. 28's the first year.
28, 29, 30.
Okay, so you get $250 million a year influx of cash. Great. You're part of this TV deal. Great. But the key is they need to keep her in the game. Now, I don't care what the other players say. They can scream at me all they want, Asia Wilson, everybody else. I'm sorry, but, okay, no ratings bump. You may get a steady increase, which is what you were getting. Why did the ratings all go up last year?
Caitlin.
I know that they feel like that's a slap in their face. Because Stewie's a great player. Aneskew's a great player, right? Asia Wilson's a great player. You say in the Olympics how great these players are. They're great players, but they don't move the needle. Sue Bird may have been a great player, but she didn't move the needle. Right? Diana Taurasi was a great player. Did they move the needle? Right? Could you wait to watch a Phoenix Mercury game when they played the Seattle Storm? No. And the timing of the season is like an odd one because the playoffs are during the NFL season. You're like, it's kind of a odd time to have it. But I realize that they start the season after the college basketball season's over. I got that part. I understand it. They're trying to, but I think there'll be there'll be benefits to the Major League Baseball not being on ESPN on Sunday nights.
Speaking of basketball, more news. This is more the gaming side of things. EA Sports put out on social media, bring the madness, let's run it back, hashtag college basketball, hashtag it's in the game, signaling for the first time since 2009 with Blake Griffin on the cover for Oklahoma. There will be an EA Sports college basketball game. They, of course, brought back college football a few years ago, and each player in college football got, I believe, $1,500 this year for being in the game, I believe was the number.
So. Yeah.
And now it looks like college basketball is going to have the same thing in the future. My guess is we're 2 years away from it. 2 to 3 years is kind of my projection, if I'm guessing here.
Well, remember what caused the game to go away? Ed O'Bannon, basketball on the cover of EA Sports.
Well, now it looks like EA Sports is bringing back the college basketball game. The question, I guess.
I can imagine the graphics on this are incredible.
Oh yeah.
See, and I would think it would be great if you could do this. We just talked about women's basketball. How about a women's basketball version of it?
Well, I know.
How about a women's basketball version of the WNBA?
I know in the NBA, I believe you can play as women's basketball teams. I know in FIFA, they made it so you could play as the women's teams. They added in
great.
Women's teams, the ultimate team stuff. So I'm guessing they're going to do the same with college basketball. And what I would like to ask you is if you could design over the past few seasons someone to be the cover star of the college basketball game. Let's say since 2020, we'd pick one player to be like that grouping, that cover star, 2020 to now. So you don't get Zion because he's out. After Zion, who are you putting on the cover? Let's go. You've got 3 total players. I think one of them's Caitlin Clark. If assuming women's basketball,
putting her on the cover.
I think Caitlin and give me 2 other players.
She'd be the biggest draw of all of them.
Oh yeah. So Caitlin Clark, give me 2 other players to go alongside her on the cover.
Cooper Flagg. And the weird thing is that I don't, as dominant a player as Zach Edey was, I don't know what kind of draw he'd be.
Yeah.
On the cover of it. I'm really
trying to think now.
It's not easy because there's no Jordan type of player. Like Jaden Ivey was that type of player, but for a year, for a year or two. Like the problem is like anybody who's worth their salt moves on. Okay, and I think that's a big problem. It's one of college basketball's biggest problems is that where's the star power?
Yeah,
I mean that's like Cooper Flagg. He was a star. Right? He was only 1 year, and he's still a young kid, right? Because I think he just turned 18 earlier in the year.
Yeah.
But that's one of the problems that college basketball has is Caitlin Clark is the one that if anybody moves the needle, it's her. And that's what's so interesting about that.
So Caitlin Clark, Cooper Flagg, if you could go back far enough, they would probably try and put, I'm assuming Zion would be the last one you'd put on there in terms of go back far enough.
Yeah,
that would probably be the other one.
He certainly would be one.
Because the past few years, I don't know who you'd like. I'm looking through all the All-Americans, and I'm like, I don't know who you'd add. Like, I don't.
No, because I vote for that.
Like, if you have,
I vote for the All-American team.
Like, what's his name? Blake Griffin was 2009.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, you could have put Anthony Davis on.
Yeah, Anthony Davis could have gotten on there. So let's go 2010 onwards. We'll start going there. Any of these names, I think John Wall could have been a fun one, 2010. I think he probably would have been the cover guy because he was the big name. But you've got on this group, I'm going through the All-Americans, by the way, to give us an idea, because that's where we would be looking. Sharon Collins, he do anything for you? Scotty Reynolds from Villanova? Evan Turner? Okay, let's go to 2011. Jimmer Fredette, maybe?
It probably would have been on the cover,
Yeah.
but,
Kemba might not have been a bad one.
Kemba Walker would have been.
Could have been there.
He would have been a cover guy.
I'm just looking through all the All-American teams as we go here. 2012, you'd have Anthony Davis. He'd be the cover star. Doug McDermott might have been like the guy. The second
McDermott would have been around there, yeah.
That one of those years, he would have been there. You go all the way to 2014 now. I don't know. Nick Stauskas.
No.
You have Doug McDermott's senior year. It's about the best you're going to get.
Yeah.
The year after that, you'd have to go with...
I didn't even vote Stauskas all big. I didn't vote him Big Ten Player of the Year.
Woof. The year after that, going to 2015, that team was Willie Cauley-Stein, Jerry and Grant, Frank Kaminsky, Jaleel Okafor, D'Angelo Russell.
They probably would have
Cat.
put on the cover Frank Kaminsky.
Right,
and it wouldn't have moved the needle.
No. The year after
and I
that,
mean that with all sincerity to Frank the Tank.
The year after that, you're looking at...
I mean, Sam Decker was a more dynamic player than Frank the Tank.
After that, you've got Tyler Ulis, Denzel Valentine, Bryce Johnson, Ben Simmons, Buddy Hield, Malcolm Brogdon. Woof. 2016.
They probably would have put Ben Simmons on the cover. But
2017, you're probably looking at Lonzo Ball. May have been the cover guy for them. Maybe Malik Monk.
No.
2018, you've got probably Jalen Brunson may have been it. Trae Young would have been one of those two, is my guess. They both were All-Americans that year. Brunson had won a couple championships. He may have just kind of gotten it because they need somebody. I don't think you're putting Ayton or Bagley on there.
No, they probably would have put it because of Villanova winning the title. They put him on there.
Brunson. You go to the 2019 class, that would have been Zion. That would have been Zion without fail. If it wasn't him, I would be surprised. And then 2020 onwards, maybe 2020 would be like an Obi Toppin because he can jump high.
I did vote for Obi Toppin for the Wooden Award that year.
It's about what I got, Steve. So
I mean, the most dynamic player that of name recognition in the last 10 years in college basketball has been Caitlin Clark.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay. Right? Like name the one person you wanted to see play a game.
Caitlin
Clark. She has been to women's basketball what Steph Curry has been to the NBA. I mean, the ability to hit that shot. And again, did you make the trip to Iowa?
I have been to Iowa, yes. I was in Iowa that year Caitlin was still in college.
Okay. All right. So in other words, so you saw the spot on the floor where she hit the shot, and I was talking to Bobby Hansen, and of course Hansen played with Jordan on the Bulls championship teams, and Bobby said, "Steve," I said, "That's 30 feet." He says, "Steve, it's 33." I said, "Geez."
And they went back this year and played a game there in Iowa, and the first shot she took was from there, and she drained it.
Yeah.
And it was like, okay. Like, she knows what she's doing.
No, and she's a show person. She understands that. She's got a great feel as a player, but also as a show person that understands that it's entertainment as well as winning. Winning, of course, is the most important part, but she has flair. To her credit, she has flair.
Yeah.
The league needs to strike while the iron's hot with her because this season has been like this, ups and downs. It's been an issue.
Craziness. And then outside
again,
of that,
I'm not trying to put down what people are doing here, but you're trying to point out, like the WNBA never releases its financials, so you've got to dig a little bit. And when 2024. With her playing in the league with expansion franchises, okay, the San Francisco Valkyries come in, right? They still lost $50 million. That's mind blowing. People think, oh, they're definitely making money. I mean, they never show the crowd. You ever notice that they don't show the crowd?
Yeah. Question for you: if you were playing the college basketball game when it comes out in a few years, and you can go back and build a Penn State dream team of 10 players, 2 at each position, since 2010, since the last game. Give me 2 point guards you want in that roster. The players you've like either loved watching most, you would be the best team, whatever you want to do. Let's start. You have four guards to choose from.
I mean, Joe Christman, Taylor Battle.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, those are two guys right there. Danny Earl.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and the wild card would be a guy that people, and of course Jalen Pickett. You're talking about the second team All-American.
Mm-hmm.
Penn State's had an All-American in Jalen Pickett. He was second team, and was in the top 10 of the Wooden Award voting. So I mean, those would be the four guys on the top of my head. As much as I love Freddie Barnes, and I love Freddie Barnes, but still.
So honorable mention, Freddie Barnes. Yep. And I would throw Ace Baldwin in there because of his defensive absurdity.
Ace a great defender.
And then let's go forwards. Let's say the
Lamar
threes and fours.
Lamar Stevens would certainly be one of them.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's a lot. I mean, a lot of guys like Matt Gaudio did all the dirty work. I'd say Glenn Secunda. In terms of ability to be a forward that could shoot. Jimmy Barnes was really good. Tom Hovass was a great shooter. Loved Hovass. I'd say, there's other guys too that get in here. I mean, what do I do with DJ Newbill? Do I put DJ Newbill as a guy that's a swing guy? Where do I put Tim Frazier? Where do I, then you get the center, and of course, Amechi's got to be on there. I mean, without question. What do I do with John Hara? What do I do with Eddie Fogel? There's a lot of guys that...
A lot of options.
Right, that help you win.
Mm-hmm.
And, what do you do with Calvin Booth?
Mm-hmm. A lot of winning players here.
Right. I mean, it's like, look, the perception is that Penn State's never good in basketball. That's the perception. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
At some point, I'm telling you, Mike Rhodes is going to have this thing where Penn State's going to be very good year in and year out.
Mm-hmm.
I think Mike's a really good coach. But you look at the past, and people act as if there haven't been any 21 seasons. There have been.
Mm-hmm.
There haven't been as many NCAA tournaments as people want, but Penn State got ripped off in 3 of them. I mean, ripped off, right? 2 because of perception and 1 because of a pandemic. In 2020, they're in. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
The 2009 team that won the NIT, Penn State and San Diego State were the last 2 out. I got that from C.M. Newton, who was running the NIT at the time. He's the one that told me that. I considered him to be a better source than maybe somebody on the internet.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so, and then in 2018, that they won the NIT. They should have been in.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember the argument was they beat Ohio State 3 times. Well, they count as 3 quad 1 wins.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and everybody kept saying, "Well, that's one team." It's like, hey, okay, if that had been North Carolina, this past year's North Carolina, that'd be 2 more wins than they had against quad 1. But because they're North Carolina, they're in.
Yeah.
So there's always that perception that, they've never been graded.
By the way, speaking of players and futures, of course, we discussed Yannick Niederhauser last week. Penn State now is one of 2 teams this year to have a player drafted in the first round of the NBA, NFL, and NHL drafts. Jackson Smith got drafted the NHL draft, 14th overall to Columbus.
Right. And Charlie got drafted in
Serrato in the
second round by the Carolina Hurricanes. I think it was the Carolina Hurricanes.
It was us. And then Penn State, by the way, added a 4th sport. Technically, if you include the PLL draft, lacrosse, Matt Trainer went 6th overall to the New York Atlas as well. Penn State, 4 first-round picks in 4 different sports first-round picks. Of course, you include Tyler Warren. That makes 5 first-round picks for Penn State across their sports as well, Abdul Carter. So, pretty cool stuff in Happy Valley.
It's been an amazing year.
Is it fair to assume Pat Kraft is a happy man right now? with that at least.
I think Pat Kraft is happy and thrilled with the past year. I think Pat Kraft is also the kind of person that's looking forward to next year.
Thank you for listening to Sports Talk with Steve Jones, a 7 Mountain Media production. Come back at 11 every weekday for analysis of the latest happening in the sports landscape. From college football to European soccer, Steve and Kyle cover it all on Sports Talk with Steve.